Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. Today, we are kicking off a really fascinating exploration, looking into a modern classic that really helped define the economic landscape we're all living in now. That's Daniel H. Pink's A Whole New Mind, moving from the information age to the conceptual age.
Oh, absolutely. This book is, well, it's huge. And its message, I think it feels even more critical today than when it first came out. Pink, he's known for Free Agent Nation. He was a White House speechwriter. He didn't just write another business book here. It was more like a cultural forecast, really.
Yeah.
And when it landed, people immediately saw it as this essential guidebook for survival and joy, as some put it. It was charting a new path through a completely changing economic world.
And I think the reason it hit so hard is that it tapped into this real sense of unease, maybe vertigo that a lot of professionals felt,
Right.
and honestly still feel. Pink basically says that the whole success structure we built over the last few decades, what he calls the information age, it rewarded a very specific type of person.
Exactly. The L-directed, or left brain, knowledge worker, that's the term he uses.
Right.
We're talking about the folks who were always told, go to school, get good grades, learn to analyze stuff, specialize, crunch the numbers, that drill. The value was all tied up in logical steps, thinking sequentially, gathering that specialized analytical knowledge. Think lawyers, programmers, engineers, accountants.
The sort of pillars of the modern professional class.
Precisely. But Pink's big point is that the keys to the kingdom, they're being handed over to a different group now.
So the information age is yielding to the conceptual age.
That's it. And in this conceptual age, society's biggest rewards are shifting. They're moving towards people with R-directed or right brain skills.
Okay, so who are these people?
He talks about creators, empathizers, people who can spot patterns, people who make meaning, artists, inventors, caregivers, big picture thinkers.
It almost sounds like a total flip, trading your MBA for an MFA, swapping the scientist for the artist.
It does sound that way initially.
Yeah.
But Pink is careful. He argues it's not about just throwing out logic. It's more about shifting where the primary value lies. Those left brain skills that defined the last era. They're still necessary, absolutely essential even. But they're not enough anymore. Not for real success.
So you need both. You have to blend that analytical power with the more holistic, intuitive power of the right brain.
That's the core idea. Whole-minded thinking.
I like how Pink uses the brain hemisphere idea. He admits it's a metaphor, right? We obviously use both sides of our brain for everything.
Oh, definitely. He's very clear it's a metaphor, but it's a really useful one as a conceptual guide.
So how does he break down that metaphor? What's the difference in his view?
Well, he describes the left hemisphere as the part that handles sequence, text, analysis. It's very literal. Think of it like the accountant. Precise, systematic, focused on the details.
Okay.
The right hemisphere, though, that's more like the artist or the philosopher. It's intuitive, it's holistic, it cares about context, emotional tone, nonlinear thinking, synthesis.
So the left sees the trees, the right sees the forest. That old saying.
Exactly that. And Pink argues the future absolutely demands this whole-minded approach. You need competence, sure, but you also need these new aptitudes.
And he groups these R-directed abilities into two main categories, doesn't he? High concept and high touch.
Spot on. High concept is about creating beauty, whether artistic or emotional. It's about spotting patterns and relationships that others might miss, forging narratives that make sense, synthesis, crossing boundaries between ideas.
And high touch.
High touch is all about the human element, the ability to empathize, to really connect with others, to find joy in interaction, and also to chase purpose and meaning, things beyond just, material stuff.
So the conceptual age needs both, the analytical and the artistic, the functional and the meaningful.
That's the argument in a nutshell.
Okay, so let's pivot a bit. Who is this book really for? If you're listening right now, who should be paying closest attention?
Well, Pink is speaking very directly to anyone whose career path was built on that traditional advice we talked about.
Get the good grades, nail the SATs, go to college, get the technical degree.
Exactly. The doctor, the lawyer, the accountant, the engineer. The person who thrived in what Pink calls the SATocracy.
That term really paints a picture.
It does. These are the knowledge workers, a term Peter Drucker coined way back. People paid for applying theoretical and analytical knowledge.
Yeah.
L-directed thinking.
Right. And for decades, that was the golden ticket, the reliable path to the middle class or even beyond.
No question. But Pink lays out very clearly, sometimes almost brutally, why that specific model is, in his words, in its dying days.
And it's not just a blip, not a temporary downturn.
No, he argues it's a fundamental structural shift. This isn't just the market having a bad week. The ground rules are changing.
And why? What's driving this massive change?
Pink points to three huge interconnected forces. He calls them the three A's: abundance, Asia, and automation.
Okay, the three A's.
These three forces are working together to systematically chip away at the value of routine, rule-based, L-directed work.
So they kind of act like a filter, forcing people to reassess their value.
Exactly. A survival filter. They make you ask some really tough questions about what you actually bring to the table professionally.
Let's break them down. Start with the first A, abundance.
Abundance.
Right.
It's almost paradoxical, isn't it? The incredible success and productivity of the information age, especially in the developed world, has created a situation where, for many people, basic material needs are largely met.
We have enough stuff, maybe too much stuff. Pink mentions things like more cars than drivers, the explosion of self-storage units.
Precisely. We're drowning in functionality. So, when L-directed thinking achieves that kind of total victory in producing functional things, what happens next?
Demand has to shift somewhere else.
It shifts. Once a product or service hits that basic threshold, it works reliably, it does the job consumers start looking for something more. They focus on non-material qualities.
Like what?
Like beauty, emotion, significance, meaning, transcendence even. This creates what Pink calls the aesthetic imperative.
So we're moving from valuing things just because they work to needing things to mean something.
That's the core shift. Think about the difference between, say, a purely functional basic laptop and an Apple product. Both get the job done right,
Sure.
but one is clearly designed to connect on an emotional level, to look beautiful, to feel intuitive. That's the power of design in an age of abundance.
It's that classic example Pink uses the Michael Graves toilet brush from Target.
Exactly. A toilet brush. It's the definition of pure utility. But apply high-concept design, make it look cool, give it some personality. Suddenly, it's not just a tool.
It's something you don't mind having out. It says something about your taste.
Right. You're paying extra, not for better function, really, but for the significance, for the feeling that your space is thoughtfully put together. It's moving from utility to meaning.
And businesses that don't get this are in trouble if you're only competing on function or price.
You're racing to the bottom.
Yeah.
Because functionality gets commoditized fast. Businesses have to find ways to offer significance, emotion, beauty.
That toaster example is great, too. Spends 1% of its life making toast.
And 99% just sitting there on the counter being object in your environment. We're driven by that 99% of significance, not just the 1% of utility anymore.
So abundance creates this hunger for meaning, this meaning want, and shifts our focus beyond just the rational.
Absolutely. If your work only provides purely rational, functional value, you're offering something that's becoming increasingly easy to get and therefore less valuable.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to the second A, Asia. This one feels more direct, more like a classic economic threat.
It is. Asia, for Pink, is really shorthand for globalization and the rise of offshoring, particularly for white-collar work. This force hits right at the perceived security of the Western knowledge worker.
This is the idea that L-directed routine office work can be done cheaper elsewhere.
Exactly. Thanks to technology and near-zero communication costs, a lot of that standardized, rule-based work that fueled the Western middle class can now be done just as effectively, sometimes more effectively, overseas for a fraction of the cost.
Pink saw this early on, didn't he? With software developers in India.
He did. He wrote about programmers in Mumbai coding for major North American banks. Highly skilled, well-educated professionals, but working for significantly lower salaries than their counterparts in the West.
And the scale is just enormous. You mentioned India producing hundreds of thousands of engineering graduates annually.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering. Around 350,000 engineering grads per year from India alone back when he wrote this. And you see major corporations running huge parts of their operations, software development, financial back offices in places like Bangalore, Manila.
And it's not just basic call centers or data entry anymore, is it?
Not at all. That's the crucial point. It's moved way up the value chain. We're talking about sophisticated knowledge work, financial analysis, legal research, accounting, tax prep.
Even medical tasks.
Yes. Things like reading X-rays, CT scans, MRIs. If the task involves analyzing data according to established rules, which is fundamentally L-directed, it's potentially vulnerable to being done remotely, and therefore potentially offshored.
Wow. So even highly educated professionals aren't safe if their work is primarily rule-based.
That's the uncomfortable truth. If you spent years getting a specialized degree, maybe took on a lot of debt, thinking your analytical skills were your secure asset, well, globalization means that skill is now competing on a global market where price is a huge factor.
That must create a real crisis for people. You play by the rules, you do everything right.
And suddenly the rules of the game change. It's a cognitive dissonance, as you said. The playing field itself has tilted.
So what's the defense against this?
Pig argues the only truly reliable defense is cultivating those R-directed skills. Abilities that require nuanced understanding, cultural context, complex communication, being physically present, things that you simply can't effectively offshore.
If it can be sent down a wire, it's vulnerable. If it requires face-to-face interaction, deep synthesis, or cultural intuition,
You're probably safer,
yeah.
at least from this particular force.
Which leads us directly to the third A, automation. If globalization is coming for the routine jobs via people overseas, automation is coming for them via machines.
Right, this is the idea that technology itself is increasingly capable of performing L-directed tasks. Any job that can be broken down into a clear set of rules, a repeatable sequence, an algorithm, eventually software or a machine can probably do it.
And often faster, cheaper, and maybe even more accurately than a human.
Often, yes.
Yes.
The classic example Pink uses is chess.
Right, the ultimate logical analytical game.
Exactly. Pure L-directed calculation. When Garry Kasparov, the world champion, the best human-mind at chess, lost to the computer Deep Blue and later Deep Junior, it was a huge symbolic moment.
It wasn't that the computer was smarter in a human sense.
No. It was that the computer's sheer brute force computational power, its L-directed ability, could simply outcalculate the human brain. It could analyze millions of moves per second. It showed that pure analytical horsepower was becoming a commodity.
And now this software forklift for the mind, as some call it, is moving into those supposedly safe professions.
Absolutely. Take law, for example. So much of basic legal work reviewing documents for specific keywords, researching precedents, is essentially a sophisticated pattern-matching task.
Perfect for software.
Perfect for software and massive databases. Pink mentions services like CompleteCase.com handling uncontested divorces online for a few $100s. That bypasses hours of junior associate work simply filling out standard forms. The information monopoly lawyers once had is eroding.
And medicine, too. You mentioned scans, but what about diagnosis?
Well, a lot of initial diagnosis relies on following decision trees based on symptoms and test results. Is symptom A present, yes or no? Is value X above a certain threshold, yes or no? Computers excel at that kind of binary logic.
So with large electronic health records and smart diagnostic software,
Routine diagnoses can increasingly be aided or even handled by technology, which means the doctors who will truly thrive are the ones who can handle the non-routine, the complex cases, the ones requiring deep intuition, patient counseling, that high-touch human connection.
okay. So abundance changes what we value, Asia moves routine work elsewhere, and automation replaces rule-based thinking with software. It's a powerful combination.
It really is. And it leads Pink to propose this crucial survival filter. Every professional, he says, needs to ask themselves 3 questions about their work.
Question 1.
Can someone overseas do it cheaper?
Okay. 2
Can a computer do it faster?
and 3.
Is what I'm offering in demand in an age of abundance. Am I offering something people desire for its aesthetic, emotional, or spiritual value, not just its function?
And if the answer is yes to the first 2 or no to the third?
Pink says you're likely in deep trouble, structurally speaking. The only sustainable path forward is to deliberately start developing those R-directed aptitudes, the ones that automation and offshoring can't easily replicate.
All right, let's dive into those essential aptitudes. This is really the heart of Pink's solution, isn't it? The 6 senses needed for the conceptual age. These are the R-directed skills, mixing high concept and high touch.
Exactly. This is a toolkit for thriving. And the first one he identifies is design.
Design. But not just making things look pretty, right?
No, it's much deeper than that. He defines it as moving beyond mere function. It's about enhancing utility with significance, making things work well and resonate emotionally or aesthetically.
So in this age of abundance we talked about, good design becomes essential for standing out.
Absolutely essential. It's gone from being a nice-to-have, maybe a luxury add-on, to a core economic necessity. If you have a market flooded with products that all basically work, how do you differentiate?
Through better design, making it more beautiful, more intuitive, more satisfying to use and own.
Precisely. The product that connects on that deeper, R-directed level wins. This is why you hear executives at places like General Motors saying things like, "We're in the art business now."
They're not just making cars, they're making mobile sculpture.
Right. It signals a huge cultural shift within industries that were previously all about engineering and function. And it's reflected in education, too.
The MFA becoming the new MBA.
That's the provocative phrase Pink uses. Recruiters started realizing that the skills taught in Master of Fine Arts programs, synthesis, creativity, aesthetic judgment, understanding human experience, were becoming incredibly valuable. Maybe even more valuable in some contexts than purely analytical business skills.
He mentions UCLA's art school admission rate sometimes being lower than Harvard business schools.
Yeah, that really underscores where the demand for scarce, high-concept talent is heading.
And this isn't just for high-end products, is it? Pink talks about the democratization of design.
That's key. Good design isn't just for the wealthy anymore. Stores like Target, IKEA, design within reach. They've made aesthetically pleasing products accessible to the mass market.
Which forces all companies to up their game.
Exactly. We now expect and seek out beauty and meaning even in everyday objects. Like that toilet brush again. It's not just about function. It's about the meaning the object brings to our lives, how it makes us feel.
And design thinking can actually solve real-world systemic problems too, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Design, at its core, is about shaping our environment to better serve human needs, often emotional and psychological needs, not just functional ones. Think about healthcare.
Better hospital design.
Yes. Studies have shown that things like introducing more natural light, using calming colors, incorporating nature, even adding meditative spaces like labyrinths. These design choices can actually speed up patient recovery times, reduce stress, lower blood pressure, even lessen the need for pain medication.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
It is. And in education, there's evidence suggesting that well-designed schools correlate with better student performance. Good design fosters well-being, which enables better outcomes.
And the flip side is true too, right? Bad design can cause huge problems.
The classic, infamous example is the butterfly ballot, used in Florida during the 2000 U.S. presidential election. A fundamentally confusing, poorly designed piece of paper likely led thousands of people to vote incorrectly, potentially altering the course of the election. It shows how L-directed systems can fail catastrophically without R-directed design sensibility.
So cultivating design thinking is crucial. Okay, what's the second sense?
The second sense is story, moving beyond just logical argument to providing context enriched by emotion.
In a world overflowing with data, facts alone aren't enough.
Exactly. The information age gave us facts galore. Raw data is everywhere. It's cheap. What's become incredibly valuable is the ability to take that data, weave it into a compelling narrative, make it meaningful, memorable, and emotionally resonant.
Because humans are just fundamentally wired for stories, aren't we?
We absolutely are. We make sense of the world through narrative cause and effect, characters, challenges, resolutions, not through spreadsheets and bullet points primarily.
Neuroscience backs this up.
It does. Our brains are literally structured to understand and remember information better when it's framed as a story. And this has huge implications for business.
Because business is largely about persuasion.
Fundamentally, Pink estimates that organizational storytelling, using narrative to persuade, motivate, share knowledge, is already a massive part of the economy. Maybe $1 trillion component in the U.S. alone.
How does that work in practice? Is it just marketing spin?
Oh, much more than that. Think of knowledge management inside large organizations. Steve Denning's work at the World Bank is a great example.
Right, he found that dry reports didn't work.
Completely ineffective for sharing best practices. People just didn't read them or internalize them.
Yeah.
So he shifted to collecting and sharing short, compelling anecdotes, actual stories from the field about how a particular challenge was overcome.
And those stories stuck.
They stuck because they provided context, human drama, nuance. Xerox had a similar success with their Eureka database.
Collecting stories from repair technicians.
Yeah, stories about how they solved tricky, unusual problems out in the field. Things you couldn't just write down in a standard repair manual. That database of contextual, story-based knowledge was estimated to have saved Xerox something like $100 million. Stories carry the wisdom that pure logic often misses.
And on a personal level, stories about connection, right? Like that realtor example.
Exactly. Selling the house, not just on the price and square footage, which is L-directed data anyone can find online, but on the emotional story of the family who lived there for 50 years. That's the high-touch advantage. It creates a connection that data alone can't.
Pink also mentions Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey.
Yes, that deep universal story structure that resonates with us. He suggests we can use that framework to understand our own lives, our career transitions, even the anxiety caused by the 3 A's. That's the call to adventure into the conceptual age.
And the role of story in medicine seems particularly powerful. Narrative medicine.
It's incredibly profound. Dr. Rita Charon's work showed the importance of doctors listening to the patient's whole story, not just interrupting after 20-odd seconds to extract the clinical facts.
Because the narrative itself holds clues.
Often, yes. The patient's context, their emotions, their family situation, it's all part of the diagnostic picture. Pure L-directed analysis can miss crucial elements that emerge in the story.
And they use that parallel chart idea.
Right. Medical students are trained to keep the standard clinical chart, facts, figures, L-directed data, but also a parallel chart where they write down the patient's narrative and, importantly, reflect on their own emotional responses to the patient and their story.
How does that help?
It forces the doctor to engage empathically, to see the patient as a whole person. Studies suggest it improves diagnostic accuracy, builds trust, reduces physician burnout, because it brings that R-directed human element back into the clinical encounter.
Fascinating. Okay, number 3 is symphony. What does that mean?
Symphony is about synthesis. It's the ability to see the big picture, to connect the dots between seemingly unrelated fields or ideas. It's about recognizing patterns and forging new combinations.
So not just focusing narrowly, but seeing how things fit together.
Exactly. As routine analytical tasks get automated or offshored, the ability to synthesize, to see the whole system, becomes incredibly valuable. It's the essence of high-concept thinking.
This sounds like the innovator's mindset.
It really is. Pig talks about the Reese's peanut butter cup theory of innovation, combining two existing things that nobody else thought to put together, chocolate and peanut butter.
Right.
A lot of breakthroughs don't come from inventing something totally new from scratch, but from creatively combining existing elements in a novel way. That requires symphonic thinking, seeing connections others miss.
And our education system often pushes us away from this, towards narrow specialization.
It often does. The L-directed path encourages deep dives into silos, but the conceptual age demands boundary crossers. People who can speak the language of different disciplines, who can connect the tech people with the marketing people, who can bridge cultures.
Like mediating between coders in Asia and clients in the West, as you mentioned.
Precisely. That requires understanding both the technical logic and the cultural context, the unspoken needs. It requires synthesis. An MIT professor once said perspective is often more important than raw IQ for breakthroughs. You need to see the whole field.
And Pink highlights metaphor as a key tool for symphony.
Yes, metaphorical thinking, what he calls MQ or metaphoric quotient, is crucial. It's the ability to understand one concept in terms of another seemingly unrelated concept.
Like the Velcro example.
Perfect example. Georges de Mistral sees burrs sticking to his dog's fur after a walk. His R-directed mind makes a metaphorical leap. These burrs are like tiny hooks. What if I could create a fabric fastener based on this hook and loop principle? A purely logical, literal, L-directed mind wouldn't make that connection. Metaphor is how we bridge disparate ideas.
And this ability to see patterns and connections intuitively is also key for leadership.
Absolutely. Pink mentions Sidney Harman, the CEO of Harman International, who famously said he liked to hire poets as managers.
Poets, really?
Yes, because he saw them as original systems thinkers. He believed they had an intuitive grasp of complexity, of seeing the whole picture, that purely analytical managers might lack. Effective leaders are often great pattern recognizers, relying on intuition developed through experience, not just deductive reasoning.
So how do you get better at symphony? Can it be trained?
Pink suggests activities that force you to integrate different modes of thinking. One interesting example he gives is learning to draw realistically.
Drawing. How does that help with synthesis?
Because drawing isn't about just recalling a symbol from memory. That's L-directed. To draw accurately, you have to truly see the relationships between lines, shapes, light, shadow, negative space. You have to perceive the whole and how the parts fit together. It forces your R-directed brain to synthesize visual information, and that skill can translate to other forms of complex problem solving.
Interesting. Okay, sense number 4, empathy. This feels very high touch.
It absolutely is. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person, to step into their shoes, see the world from their perspective, and feel with them.
And this is something machines and overseas workers can't easily replicate.
Exactly. Pink argues it's perhaps the most difficult aptitude to automate or outsource effectively. Genuine human connection and understanding require presence, nuance, shared experience.
He brings in the science here, too, about the right hemisphere being key for reading nonverbal cues.
Yes, so much of emotional communication is nonverbal facial expressions, tone of voice, body language. The right hemisphere excels at picking up and interpreting these subtle signals, which is the foundation of empathy.
He talks about Paul Ekman's work on universal facial expressions.
Right. Ekman identified microexpressions, fleeting facial signals that reveal true emotions, often unconsciously. Being able to spot these is a powerful empathic skill.
And the classic example is the Duchenne smile.
The genuine smile. A fake or social smile just uses the muscles around the mouth. But a real spontaneous smile, the Duchenne smile, also engages the orbicularis oculi muscles around the eyes, creating crow's feet.
And that eye muscle is hard to control voluntarily.
Very difficult for most people.
Yeah.
So being able to distinguish a genuine smile from a forced one relies on that R-directed ability to read subtle cues. It's fundamental to knowing if someone's emotional display is authentic.
And this need for genuine empathy is driving demand in certain professions.
Absolutely. Look at fields like nursing, counseling, teaching, elder care. These are high-touch professions where the core value proposition is human connection, understanding, comfort, and presence.
You can't really automate or offshore a caring nurse, can you?
Not effectively. The demand for nurses is projected to continue soaring, precisely because what they offer is intrinsically human and R-directed. You can't deliver genuine comfort and presence through a fiber optic cable or a robot, not in the same way.
And empathy can sometimes mean overriding strict rules, like in that ER doctor story.
That's such a powerful illustration. The postal worker during the 2001 anthrax scare. Official L-directed protocol said don't prescribe the antibiotic Cipro widely, but the ER doctor listened to the postal worker's story, sensed his genuine fear and intuition that he'd been exposed.
And trusted the human element over the protocol.
He did. He prescribed the Cipro based on empathy and intuition against the rules, and it turned out the worker was infected, and the Cipro likely saved his life. That's the power of empathy to see beyond the algorithm.
So conceptual age leadership requires that willingness to listen to the human story, the intuition, not just the data.
Definitely. And it's becoming a trainable skill. Medical schools now use actors to help students practice reading nonverbal cues and conveying empathy. It's seen as a core professional competency, not just a soft skill. Pink also makes the interesting point that many skills traditionally associated with women, contextual thinking, reading emotion, valuing attachment, are essentially R-directed skills, now crucial for everyone in the conceptual age.
Right. Okay, fifth sense, play. This one sounds fun, but how is it essential?
Pink makes a compelling case that play is fundamental, not frivolous. He quotes someone saying the opposite of play isn't work, it's depression. Playfulness, humor, games, these are becoming recognized as vital for well-being and even corporate success.
Like Southwest Airlines making fun part of their mission.
Exactly. They understood early on that a playful, positive culture leads to better employee engagement and customer loyalty. It's not just fluff, it's a strategic advantage. And you see things like serious play workshops using Lego.
Right, for executive training.
Yeah, using Lego bricks to build models of complex business problems. It engages people physically and creatively, helps them think systemically, that's symphony again, and breaks down rigid L-directed thinking patterns.
And video games. Pink sees them as more than just entertainment.
Much more. He calls them potentially the literature of the 21st century. The game industry is huge, bigger than movies. And complex games teach incredibly valuable R-directed skills.
Like what?
Like systems thinking, figuring out how complex rules interact, problem solving in dynamic environments, strategic thinking. And in multiplayer games, collaboration, negotiation, even empathy.
And there are measurable benefits, like for surgeons.
Yes, that study is fascinating. Surgeons who played video games for about 3 hours a week made significantly fewer errors, like 37% fewer in laparoscopic surgery simulations.
Why?
Better hand-eye coordination, improved spatial reasoning, faster reaction times, better ability to process complex visual information under pressure. These are R-directed skills honed by gaming.
So universities are even offering degrees in this area.
Absolutely. Carnegie Mellon's Masters in Entertainment Technology, MET program, combines arts and technology, aiming to be a professional credential on par with an MBA or MFA. It signals that understanding play, games, and entertainment is becoming a serious professional asset.
And play also involves humor, doesn't it?
Yes, humor is a key component. Understanding and appreciating humor is a highly sophisticated R-directed ability. It involves recognizing incongruity, the unexpected twist, which requires metaphorical thinking and understanding context. The right frontal lobe is critical for getting a joke.
And it's useful in management.
Definitely. Studies show highly effective managers use humor significantly more often than average ones. It's a marker of high emotional intelligence. Humor can diffuse tension, build rapport, communicate status subtly, reduce stress. It's a powerful high-touch tool.
Pink even mentions laughter clubs.
Right, Dr. Madan Kataria's movement. People gathering just to laugh, sometimes for no specific reason, just to activate that sense of joy and well-being associated with the right brain. It's purposeful play for health benefits.
Okay, that brings us to the sixth and final sense, meaning.
This is arguably the capstone, the ultimate high-touch driver. Pink draws heavily on Viktor Frankl's work here.
Man's search for meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Frankl argued, based on his horrific experiences in concentration camps, that the most fundamental human drive isn't for pleasure, but for meaning and purpose.
And in our age of abundance,
where basic survival needs are met for so many, that innate human hunger for meaning comes to the forefront. We're freed up to ask the bigger questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Pink sees this as a large-scale societal shift, maybe even a fourth-grade awakening.
people achieving material success through L-directed work but feeling empty.
Precisely. They climb the ladder, cut the stuff, but find themselves asking, is this all there is? This fuels the search for purpose, for work that aligns with deeper values. It's reflected in the rise of positive psychology, too.
Which focuses not just on fixing what's wrong, but on cultivating well-being.
Right. Martin Seligman, a key figure there, talks about the good life. And he identifies the highest form of happiness not as the pleasant life, seeking pleasure, or the engaged life, flow, but the meaningful life.
And how is that defined?
As using your highest strengths and talents in the service of something larger than yourself, connecting your actions to a purpose beyond your own immediate gratification.
And this quest for meaning is now showing up in the workplace.
Increasingly so. People talk about workplace spirituality, not necessarily organized religion, but the desire for work to have purpose, to align with personal values. And companies that acknowledge this, that connect their goals to a larger sense of meaning, often find they have more engaged employees and perform better.
Even scientific institutions are exploring this.
Yeah, Pink mentions the Dalai Lama speaking at MIT about the mind bridging science and spirituality. It shows a growing recognition that these aren't separate realms, but interconnected aspects of the human experience that the conceptual age demands we integrate.
Pink uses a final, really evocative metaphor to capture the shift in perspective, doesn't he? The maze versus the labyrinth.
Yes, it's a brilliant way to summarize the mindset change. The maze, he says, is L-directed.
How so?
A maze is a puzzle. It has dead ends, wrong turns, one correct path to the exit. The goal is to analyze, deduce, solve it, and escape. It's about finding the single right answer.
Okay. And the labyrinth?
The labyrinth is fundamentally different. It looks complex, but it usually has only one single winding path that leads inevitably to the center and back out again. There are no tricks, no dead ends.
So the goal isn't to solve it?
No. The purpose of walking a labyrinth isn't escape. It's the journey itself. It's a tool for walking meditation, for reflection, for centering oneself. You can get lost in a maze, but you can only find yourself or lose yourself in thought in a labyrinth. It's R-directed.
That's a really profound distinction for how we approach life and work.
It totally reframes success. Is success about solving the puzzle and getting out the maze? Or is it about the quality of the journey, the insights gained along the way, the sense of wholeness found, the labyrinth?
And this is being used practically like in hospitals?
Yes. Places like Johns Hopkins have installed labyrinths. They provide a space for patients, families, even staff to walk, to calm their L-directed analytical minds, because the path is predictable, and allow their R-directed minds to process emotions, find solace, maybe gain new perspectives. It supports whole-minded healing.
So the conceptual age invites us to stop seeing life as a maze to be conquered, and more as a labyrinth to be walked with purpose and reflection.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Moving from frantic, fear-based maze running to more mindful, meaning-driven labyrinth walking.
Okay. That's a fantastic overview. We've covered Daniel Pink's core argument about the shift from the information age to the conceptual age. We looked at the three big drivers: abundance, Asia, and automation, and how they're changing the value of different skills. And then we explored the 6 essential R-directed senses needed to navigate this new world: design, story, symphony, empathy, play, and meaning.
Yeah, and I think the crucial takeaway isn't that those traditional L-directed skills, analysis, logic, focus, are now useless. Far from it.
They're just the starting point now.
Exactly. They're table stakes, the baseline expectation. Real value creation, differentiation, and enduring success in the conceptual age comes from blending those skills with these high-concept, high-touch abilities.
So it's not enough just to crunch the numbers anymore.
Right. You need to be able to interpret the numbers, yes, but also craft the story around them, see the bigger pattern they fit into, design a solution that resonates emotionally, and deliver it with empathy. It's about the whole mind.
It really does feel like a call to consciously develop parts of ourselves that maybe our education or early careers trained us not to focus on.
I think that's exactly right. If you've spent years honing only your analytical side, the challenge now is to intentionally nurture the artist, the storyteller, the empathizer, the meaning seeker within you.
Stop just working in the job description and start working on your whole self, your whole mind.
And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Pink gives lots of practical exercises in the book. Start small. Try drawing for 10 minutes. Think about the story behind your latest project. Intentionally use humor or find ways to play at work. Listen more deeply in your next conversation.
These are fundamentally human skills, aren't they? They're already there.
They are. For most of us, they just need to be rediscovered, dusted off, and put back into regular practice. They need to be nurtured back into shape.
And the message seems to be that those who embrace this shift, who start cultivating these art-directed senses now, will be the ones who find the most opportunity and maybe the most fulfillment in the conceptual age.
I think that's the hopeful and empowering message at the heart of it.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.